What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. Tonight, April 28th, it's Thursday. We're literally a week away from the first round of the NFL draft. Super excited. And I have not been putting out a lot of content lately, but this one is probably going to be the last big video that I put out leading up into the draft. We're going to go over my 2024 Dynasty rookie data study. And I've been working on this for the last couple months. Tons of data in here, advanced metrics and rankings and things like that. So it is available on the fantasyfellowship.com if you guys want to get access to it. Let's hop into a screen share here and I'll show you guys what we're looking at here. So if you go to fantasyfellowship.com, I do have a new membership feature on the website. So if you want to check it out, please do. Otherwise, we're going to go over most of it today in this video. But I have an entire document here, a PDF document that you can download or you can view on here. It's got rankings and it's, by position and just a ton of stuff to look at in the guide. I list my rankings here, and you can download each data study individually, but I pretty much just put it all in here for you guys. So if you're interested, check out the membership site of the Fantasy Fellowship. There's still some free stuff on there, but please check that out. And then without further ado, what I'm going to do here is we're going to stop the screen share and let's go ahead and I'm going to show you guys a peek inside the 2024 Dynasty rookie guide. And it's my first year really making something this big of a data study. We're going to get better each year going forward. So, at any point in the video, if you guys have a thought or a comment or a question, please let me know. I'm going to try and make this better each year. I worked out a lot of kinks and I've found things that I want to do better for next year. But this is purely looking at data study where the entire 2024 rookie class, I'm looking at each player and their last few seasons as a college player. And then we're also comparing those seasons to the last handful of classes. So in this, we're taking the 2024 rookie class and comparing it to the 2020, 21, 22, and 23 class. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just kind of go through it page by page. And we're just going to hang out for the next however long this takes me to make it. I did just buy a house. I'm a first-time homeowner. I will be, I'm excited, man. We're going to be closing on the house next Friday. I got a lot of excitement and things to do around the house. It's a bit of a fixer-upper, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So have no fret, though. We're still going to be putting out a lot of Dynasty content. And basically, I've kind of just held on to putting out content because, once I can keep putting out content on these guys, but basically the NFL draft, we need to know their landing spots. We need to know things. But with this data study, we will identify some things in players and things that I've been liking. So without further ado, the first page here is going to be the pre-draft positional rankings. And I made this like a week ago. A lot of this is probably going to change, and I'm going to get an update out, either that Sunday night or Monday after the NFL draft. So we'll have updated rankings for you guys. If you guys are in leagues where you start drafting right away, I'll have them. But at quarterback here, and we'll kind of just quickly go over this because we're going to get into all the data. But quarterback, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, Penix, Bo Nix, and then Rattler, Travis, Pratt, and Milton. These guys are projects, probably not going to be drafted really unless it's a super flex league in the fourth round. But for me, I'm locked into Caleb Williams. I think he should be the first pick in a super flex draft. If you really needed to take Marvin Harrison, you can. For fantasy, Jaden Daniels is going to be dynamite for the next 3-4 years on his rookie deal. Drake May, I think he's a projection player where, in 2-3 years from now, we might be really happy. We might be kind of upset. Same thing with JJ McCarthy. We don't have a lot of data points on him with his volume at Michigan, but I like the tools and think he could be a nice developmental player. And then Penix. Penix has a bit of a questionable athletic profile and with health concerns here, but I think he's got one of the best arms and can make all the throws. Bo Nix there, he's kind of your dink and dunker. I kind of view him as like a Derek Carr level type QB2 for Superflex. So those are the 6 guys you want to know for QB. For running back, I think most people would agree that Jonathan Brooks, had he not torn his ACL, he'd be the clear-cut number 1 in everybody's board. He's really freaking good. He backed up Bijan Robinson, was kind of just stuck there for a little while, but he was ripping and tearing in 2023 until the injury. I think he's probably the first pick or the first running back off the board on that Friday night. And then after that, you got Trey Benson, Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, I have Blake Corum listed twice on here at number 6, so I have to update that. So I got Brooks, Benson, Wright, Corum. That's kind of a consensus top 4 that I've seen. Marshawn Lloyd coming in at 5. I think he's a sneaky prospect, kind of a poor man's Kenneth Walker, if you will, bit of a wild card. You don't really know. He's like a wild horse kind of running sometimes. Don't know why I have Blake Corum here at 6, but hey, that's why we have the update after the draft. Braylon Allen at 7. He's kind of a polarizing guy. A lot of people love his athletic traits, but his tape and his game film leaves more to be desired sometimes. Like he's like this big, powerful back, and he's so young and he has so many positive things going for you. But he really just, I mean, he peaked, I think, his freshman year, and he's kind of been coming down. So we'll see if a team loves him and drafts him early. I still like Audric Estime despite the really bad combine performance. If you watch his stuff, he looks really good on tape, had a decent pro day time. Ray Davis, a value kind of veteran running back coming out. He's 24 years old, I think. Tyrone Tracy, one of my favorite sleepers. And then now we're like in the sleeper territory. Tyrone Tracy, Dylan Lobby, Will Shipley, Bucky Irving. These guys are all kind of third down, change of pace type backs. Garendo, super fast. Isaiah Davis, really good from a small school. And then some more sleepers here. Rasheen Ali, Kamani Vidal, Cody Schrader, Frank Gore Jr., and Michael Wiley. At the wide receiver position, I think most people are going to have the top 3 or 4 guys all the same. To me, Marvin Harrison, and this is landing spot pending, because whoever ends up on the Giants, we're gonna ding a little bit. I don't think Marvin Harrison's going to the Giants. I think it's very likely that he is a Arizona Cardinal, and if the Cardinals even trade out of 4, I think they could trade back up to get in with the Cardinals, like what they did last year to get the top 2 picks. So we'll see. I think Harrison Jr., though, belongs as the number 1. Malik Neighbors. In a PPR league, you could maybe convince me that Neighbors is more productive right away than Marvin Harrison Jr. Depending, again, if he goes to the Giants, we'll talk about that. But Rome Odunze, number 3. People are comparing him to Larry Fitzgerald. I don't know if I see him exactly as Larry Fitzgerald. That's a tall comparison, but Odunze is going to be very, very good. And then Brian Thomas Jr., man, at number 4 for me, he needs a really good landing spot to take advantage of what he offers. He can do some really nice things, stretching the field. He's a big play receiver. But yeah, landing spot is going to be huge for him. He might be moving, based on his landing spot, he could move 1 or 2 down for me, probably not up. Adonai Mitchell, he could flip Brian Thomas if he lands on like Buffalo Bills or like a really fun team. Like I kind of want to see him on Dallas as like an X receiver out there. So he, like both guys, super talented. They blew up the combine, amazing, measurables. We'll see. Adonai Mitchell, there's some holes in his game, a lot with consistency and just taking plays off and things like that. But his best plays are some of the best plays of any receiver in this class. Ladd McConkey, just a really sneaky athletic player that's going to come in and probably be a team starting slot receiver. And he could just soak up targets right away as a rookie. Landing spot will be huge. You put him on the Panthers, we're not excited about it. You put him on the Steelers, I might be excited about him on the Steelers. Ricky Pearsall, I don't know why. Did I add the E on? I don't know. But Ricky Pearsall, athletic player. I like him a lot. Landing spot. These guys are all round 2 prospects. McConkey, Pearsall, Roman Wilson, Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin. Xavier Worthy, I don't have as a first-round player. I like Xavier Legette, round 2, 3. Jalen Polk, round 2. Corley's probably a late second, early third round prospect. And then you have some third, fourth round guys here. Jermaine Burton, Javon Baker, Devontae Walker, Malik Washington, who I like as a sleeper, Johnny Wilson, and Jalen McMillan. At tight end, it's Brock Bowers or bust. This ultimate sleeper here, though, is Ben Sinnott. I don't know if it's Sano or Sinnott. Should probably figure that out. But Jatavian Sanders is fun. He's kind of the consensus tight end too. Didn't have the best combine. I thought Sinnott had a really good one. And Theo Johnson's got amazing measurables at number 4. Cade Stover kind of disappointed me. Jaheim Bell's a project. A lot of projects here. Brock Bowers is really the only locked in guy that's going to be a top 5 pick based on if your dynasty league is super flex or 1 QB. But that's kind of just the overall pre-draft positional rankings. Again, I'm going to upload a new version of this, and I'll probably put out a video talking about landing spots. So be prepared for that. Super excited though, because at quarterback, you got Williams, Daniels, May, McCarthy. We know these guys are in the first round. Well, it's like, will Penix and Nix, will they creep in at the back end of the first so a team can get 5th year eligibility? Maybe. So watch for those guys either late first, early second. Running backs, I don't know if we're going to see any running back creep into the top or the back end of the second round, but you're looking at Brooks, Benson, Wright, Corum. Those guys are all probably in the top 100 picks, I think for sure, third round. Marshawn Lloyd, Braylon Allen, estimate. Then you're kind of talking, fringe round 4, maybe Ray Davis in there. So that's kind of the scope of the running backs. Receivers, we know Harrison, Neighbors, and Odunze are all top 10 picks. Brian Thomas might be a top 15 pick. Adonai Mitchell, I've seen his prop. He might be a top 15 pick. And then you have this huge tier of receivers here. And honestly, it could go probably to there. Ladd McConkey being like a top 40 pick, Pearsall maybe a top 40 pick, Roman Wilson kind of around 40 to 50. All of these guys could be second round picks. So very exciting. And then you have a group of guys that could be, top 100, third, fourth round guys. Brock Bowers is a top 10, 15 pick. Jatavian Sanders, maybe a late second. I think Sanat could actually hop Sanders and be a late second, early third. Theo Johnson, probably a third, fourth. These guys are all kind of, projects at tight end. So there's your pre-draft positional rankings. Again, I'll get that update in there for you. And now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this document, the Next Gen Stats. This is the first, it's the first of 5 parts. The Next Gen Stats is one data study, and then we go into the QB, running back, receiver, and tight end. So with that, we're looking at, and NFL.com provides these numbers. That's where I grabbed them from. They're going to give us production score. They're going to give us athleticism, score, and prospect grade. Now, at one point, I was trying to include these next-gen stats in with my positional studies, but I thought best to just show you guys next-gen stats all by itself. I kind of talk about the grading scale and what the NFL is looking at and how they use the numbers to get the numbers, so you guys can read that if you want. But let's go ahead and start with the QBs, next-gen stats. Let me see if I can do a little – we can't really do that. All right, so Next Gen Stats 2024 quarterbacks. What I did here is I took production score, athleticism, score, and grade, and then I found an average of those 4 rankings here. And on the far right, you can see their scale. Caleb Williams came out as number 1. He had the highest production score. Tied for second with athleticism, 89. Just one. He's tied with Jaden Daniels, which is pretty impressive. One behind JJ McCarthy. So McCarthy's sneaky athletic. Score here. And I'm not quite sure how they measure score. I think it's a combination of a ton of other stats. When I looked into it, there wasn't really a big answer. It's more of just like a player score based on a ton of stats that Next Gen and Amazon all kind of put into one. So he has the highest score. He also has the highest grade. And this is purely looking at their whole body of work in college. So it's not just the 2023 season for these guys. So his Next Gen score came out to about 91.81. And what's cool about this data study is I have the 2024 quarterback class here. And then I have the 2020, 21, 22, and 23 classes here. And you can see that 91.81, it's the best score over Bryce Young, Fields, Lawrence, Tua, Burrow, Stroud, Hurts, Herbert. It's the best score we've seen in the last, I guess this is the 5th year. So the last 5 draft classes, this is the highest score. And Jaden Daniels came in at number 2. With the second best highest score. So to me, I have a good feeling that Jaden Daniels is going to be a Washington Commander. Caleb Williams, number 1 to the Bears. These guys had tremendous seasons and careers, and it's looking very, very good. So their athleticism is up there. Production score was elite for Jaden Daniels. He had one of the best college seasons of all time last year, and just very similar numbers to Caleb Williams. He just didn't compete with the score. He had a little bit more points here. Now, JJ McCarthy coming in at number 3, the best athleticism score in this class. His score was pretty good, and his overall grade was pretty solid as well. He just didn't have the production of these top-end players. So playing at Michigan, an elite college team the last couple of seasons, didn't have to throw the ball 40 times like these other teams did. So he just didn't have the production, but his measurables, athleticism, and his scores and grades are all top notch. His 84.5 would have put him right in that Justin Herbert range. So right behind Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts. I think JJ McCarthy is a really nice player for Superflex leagues. He's going to be a locked-in QB2. I think he's a Brock Purdy plus type caliber player where Purdy offers a lot of nice things, but JJ McCarthy, much better athlete than Brock Purdy is. And you can see here, Brock Purdy, man, coming out of Iowa State, a 64 athleticism, and his grades were not very good. But we do know that Purdy can operate an offense and handle fringe QB1 numbers. So I like JJ. He's a good project. Drake May at number 4, 83.06. I like these numbers quite a lot. I don't think they graded him fairly on athleticism. I have to double check and see if that number's been updated, but 88 production, 78 athleticism, 85 score. That was the third best score in this class, and his overall grade was the third best as well, 81.25. So to me, Drake May is the consensus QB3 in this class. He's probably a New England Patriot, I would assume, unless a team wants to move up for JJ McCarthy, but I'm not sure I see that. May has a very good production score. He was very productive the last 2 years at North Carolina, and basically everyone's been nitpicking him the last couple of weeks, maybe to a month. And I think we just got to accept that Drake May is a pretty good prospect quarterback. He might not be, in the same tier as Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, but I think he's a version of Justin Herbert and CJ Stroud, where you see this 83.06, you put that in here, he'd be right behind Zach Wilson, which we know he busted, but I think this is still a very good prospect worth taking a chance on. And if you give him some weapons year one and a good offensive line year one, I think he can hang in there. So I still like Drake May. And then after that, it's all kind of chalk. Penix, Bo Nix are the next best QBs. Look at the Bo Nix athleticism score. I think that's something to note. He can run when he needs to, but he doesn't like to. Same thing with Michael Penix. He's athletic, but he doesn't really run the ball. And both guys are vastly different with how they play. Penix he's got the gunslinger mentality where he's gonna rip and tear and chuck it and force some throws. He makes good decisions, but Bo Nix, he is probably he has the lowest ADOT of this whole class. He is, in definition, he's a bit of a dink and dunker, but so is Drew Brees. I think, you put Derek Carr on one end of a spectrum and Drew Brees, Bo Nix is somewhere kind of in the middle of those guys, where both guys not very athletic, don't run the ball, but they can operate an offense and be a sufficient quarterback too for Superflex League. So those are the guys you're looking for. I think Joe Melton and Jordan Travis, these guys all have 75 grades or lower. You look down here below 75. I mean, Jordan Love worked out, but he took time in development. So maybe, these guys can develop, but under 75, Jaron Hall, Dugan, Zappi, Ellinger, Thompson Robinson, Ian Book, Davis Mills, Jake Fromm, Brock Purdy is an anomaly here, Skylar Thompson, and Nate Stanley. So to me, anything 80 and above, you got a shot. You got guys like Clayton Tune, Hendon Hooker, Will Levis, Desmond Ritter. Maybe these guys are starting at one point, but I don't think they're long-term starting quarterbacks here. So Nix and Penix are on that borderline where we're going to probably see them play at some point, but I don't think they're long-term answers. So that is the quarterbacks overall grades. Let's move on to the running backs. And here you can tell, we got Trey Benson, Jalen Wright, Jay Brooks, top three scores here at about 79. I mean, none of these guys are even in the top 12 of scores coming out of the last 4 years. You have Jonathan Taylor up here at 92.78, Bijan, Etienne, Dobbins, Brees, Najee, Kenneth Walker, A.J. Dillon, Javonte Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, DeAndre Swift, and Cam Akers all scored higher than anybody in this year's class, which I think that's kind of, if you've done your dynasty research, that's kind of what it's been. This class is good, but it's lacking a Bijan. It's lacking a Brees. It's lacking a dynamite stud player that's going to be, a top 30, top 40 pick. Again, if Jonathan Brooks had stayed healthy, he might have been there. And the Ohio State running back, Travion Henderson, might have been in that category, but he decided to go back to school. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a bunch of running back twos for fantasy football. These guys are all going to be you're probably landing spot pending. You're going to be looking at Benson, Wright, Brooks, and probably Corum as a fringe first round pick. If you need a running back, that's probably going to sway you into taking these guys. Athleticism wise, Isaac Orendo tore up the combine. He was the fastest player. He played at Wisconsin, but he was, behind Braylon Allen for a while there. He got to Louisville, and he was kind of a 1A, 1B situation with Jawar Jordan, and very athletic. He's going to be a day 3 project running back that could play special teams. He could get some work along the way. He's a fun player to watch his highlights and his game tape. I like it a lot, but production score dinged him, but his athleticism score shot him up the board here. With Trey Benson, solid production score of 73 is okay. His athleticism is pretty strong. His overall score is pretty strong. Decent grade here. I kind of view Trey Benson as, again, none of these guys are really bell cow backs. I think Jonathan Brooks can be. Trey Benson, probably a 1A type back in a system here where I don't know if they're going to trust him to handle all three downs. So none of these guys can really come in and handle all three downs. I think Brooks can. After that, maybe Blake Corum can, but we'll see. Jalen Wright at number 2. Didn't have a lot of production at Tennessee, but he has his moments, man. His highlights and his game tape are really fun. He's just kind of inconsistent as a runner, but athleticism off the charts. He blew up the combine. Pretty decent score and grade here. He's going to profile as like a, you put him in that DeAndre Swift kind of Cam Akers tier where he's not like a must-start player, but he's going to be a nice RB2 flex for you, I think. And, pending landing spot, I've seen mocks where basically whoever the Cowboys take from this group, you're gonna probably take in the top 10 of your rookie drafts. So I like Jalen Wright quite a bit. We'll get to some of his numbers later. He actually graded out really high in a lot of my metrics. And then Jonathan Brooks, man, his athleticism, they didn't really get a good grade on it because he wasn't able to be in the combine. So I think had he been able to participate in the combine, that would have got him the points to be up there. I think he's more probably in the grade realm of like Najee and Kenneth Walker, probably like a low 80 grade. So Brooks, still my RB1. Garendo, a fun project, maybe late round 3, round 4, depending on where he goes. Blake Corum, he grades out fine here in the next gen stat studies. We'll look at his numbers later. He's one of the most solid all-around running backs you can find. He's got great vision. He can do everything very well. Doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, and he's probably the bet is he's going to be a Charger. We'll see. I wouldn't mind seeing him there. They did just sign J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, so we'll see. But I think Blake Corum is just kind of your all-around, really solid running back. He can be an instant running back, too, with the right spot. Marshawn Lloyd at number 6, USC. Nothing really pops here. His athleticism is pretty good for his size. Overall, just a solid all-around back. I don't know if he's a true 3-down back. He can catch. He kind of got lost at USC just because it's Caleb Williams' offense. They didn't have to do a lot with Marshawn Lloyd. It was all built around Caleb and throwing the ball 40 times a game. But I like Marshawn Lloyd. I think a lot of people think him as a sleeper. Pending landing spot, man, we could be looking at Marshawn Lloyd moving up boards. I don't think Braylon Allen here at 7. I don't think he is a 3-down back. I view him as a banger. He can catch. He can do some things, but he's just got no wiggle. A little bit of a prospect when it comes down to 3rd down work and catching the ball and things like that. But 1st and 2nd down, man, he could be a nice back in a system that has a defined 3rd down role for somebody. So I like Braylon Allen. He's more of an A.J. Dillon type back, though. Audric Estime, really nice production. Terrible combine. He had a better pro day, but his numbers tanked when his athleticism score came up and he had that slow 40 time. Bucky Irving, really solid production, terrible combine, terrible athleticism score. Ray Davis, kind of the same thing. So these guys, they can play. They just don't have the athletic profile that we're looking for. Now, these guys, Tyrone Tracy, Keelan Robinson, and Kamani Vidal, awesome athletic profiles, not a lot of production. So these guys I kind of view as those committee type backs where Tyrone Tracy, he could be a Jalen Warren type player where he comes in on 3rd downs and he could catch 40, 50 balls in a season. Keelan Robinson was kind of backed up, behind Brooks and some of the other running backs there, but he's an explosive playmaker. Kamani Vidal out of Troy. Really fun tape there if you go watch what he's got. He's just played at a small school, so his production profile's dinged a little bit. But, Dylan Lobb, Will Shipley, we're not looking at any 3-down kind of backs here. These guys are all kind of niche backs. So it's a good class. But again, it's just missing that top-end player where, it's a fringe first-round running back type deal. So a lot of guys that offer a lot of nice things, a lot of niche backs here. Don't know if there's any true 3-down backs, but that's your next-gen stats running back scores. Receiver. We got a lot of good ones here. Romo Dunes, I actually graded out the best. Xavier Worthy with the 98 athleticism score brings him number 2. Neighbors didn't grade out a great athleticism, but again, he didn't really participate in the combine. Either did Marvin Harrison Jr. That's why these guys are lower. But they do have, both Neighbors and Marvin have the best production scores in this class at 96 and 94. Maybe I should look again and see if they updated the athleticism scores, but these two are the best players in this class. Brian Thomas with great athleticism score, Troy Franklin up there, Adonai Mitchell up there, Devontae Walker with a good athleticism score, and Malik Washington. Don't sleep on him. He's one of the smartest receivers, I think, in this class. And I think he can be an instant slot receiver for a team if they grab him with the right spot. Jermaine Burton had some off-field issues, but he's a good player. Xavier Legette, The fifth-year senior breakout, he's going to be a lot of fun to talk about when he gets his landing spot. Jalen Polk, Lad McConkey. McConkey really suffered from the production score, but he's got everything that you're looking for to be a team starting slot receiver and just a zone eater. Jacob Cowing, Ricky Pearsall, pretty good athleticism score there. Roman Wilson, who I like a lot, but again, Michigan just dinged a little bit from that production score. Anthony Gold, super athletic player. He's going to be a special team type guy. I like Taj Washington quite a bit. I thought he was a lot of fun. I don't know why it says Louisville. He was USC there. But Corley, India Smith, Luke McCaffrey, Javon Baker, McMillan, Weaver, these guys are all kind of role players. Just look how low, though. Like Keon Coleman, people had him in the first round if you were looking in January and February. Now he's kind of pushed down to a mid-late second. Didn't have a great combine. His numbers got pushed down. He's kind of a basketball type player above the rim. I think he did play basketball. Otherwise, a lot of guys here that we're probably not going to care too much about. I would stick to kind of the top 20 or so. For sure, the top 10 you need to know. And then over here, you can see Odunze at 86. He grades out as like a top 5 prospect, going back to Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, CeeDee Lamb, poor Elijah Moore, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle. Jalen Hyatt actually scored a really, really high score in this. Maybe take a flyer on Jalen Hyatt in Dynasty League, see if someone wants to sell him for cheap. You got JJ there, Garrett Wilson. I think you have a lot of guys on this Jefferson, Garrett Wilson access, whether it's Odunze, Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Brian Thomas, maybe Adonai Mitchell. And basically, anything above 80 is a pretty good receiver. You can see here, Dwayne Eskridge, Sky Moore, whatever, but Olave, Christian Watson, Josh Downs, Calvin Austin had a great athletic profile, but he hasn't really worked out. Mims hasn't really worked out. Judy's still not working out. Tony, Rondell Moore, but this top 10 looks pretty good. Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, JJ, Waddle, Lamb, Smith, and Chase. So the scores do kind of back out, they end up working out. Players down here around 80 that have worked out. Jordan Addison looks like he's going to work out. Michael Pittman's going to work out. Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, Drake London, Rashi Rice. We'll see. So pretty good numbers here from the receivers. Tight end, this one's not really a one that I want to spend a lot of time on. Brock Bowers, man, he's got the second best grade behind Kyle Pitts. Brock Bowers is that dude. You want him. Don't get Kyle Pitts syndrome and be nervous about taking a tight end. Take Brock Bowers. If he's a Jet, that could be exciting. He's going to be their number 2 receiver. But Jatavian Sanders graded out well. Look at Ben Sinnott here. These guys all with about an 80. Tight ends really hit or miss, man. It really depends on landing spot and what they can do. You got guys like down here like Jake Ferguson at a 74. You got guys like Michael Mayer here at 77, Pat Fryermuth, Laporta even got a 79. So we'll discuss tight end when we get to it. But I think for sure Bowers, Sanders, and Sinnott are the 3 guys that have the best chance to break out. Maybe Theo, maybe Jaheim Bell. So with that being said, to wrap up the NGS scores, I took all positions here, did their NGS grade. And you can see the top 100, or I guess the top 96 players here. So the top players in this based on next gen stats: Caleb, Brock Bowers, Jaden Daniels, Odunze, Worthy with the athleticism score. I probably should have weighted it a little bit, but it bumps guys significantly if they have great scores there. Neighbors, McCarthy, Brian Thomas, Marvin Harrison. And you can see these guys are all kind of first round prospects. So the scores do stick out and make a little bit of sense there. And then what I did here is I took the players 1 through 96 from the last few classes, but I included the 2024 classes. So Caleb Williams is like the 3rd best scorer in the last 5 years. Brock Bowers, Jaden Daniels. We got some elite talent in this year's class, guys. So be excited about your rookie drafts this year and check out the NGS scores. But we'll kind of skip forward here. I got a ton of scores here for you guys. But let's get into the 2024 rookie quarterbacks. And this is where we're going to have a little fun. So in order to get like better stats and numbers here, I did have to filter this to minimum 100 passing attempts. Now what we're looking at here is fantasy points per game. And you have your 2024 QBs on the left, the data set from 2020 to 2023 on the far right. So Jaden Daniels puts up 39.82 fantasy points per game last year. That's the number 1 scorer in the last 5 seasons. So elite year from Jaden Daniels. Caleb Williams at number 2. That was his 2022 season. Williams in 2023, bit of a regression, but we can explain that with just trying to do too much a little bit. But this is a good way to just look and see what a player's ceiling was. You want elite talent. You want elite production from the college level here, and these guys all did. Daniels, Williams, Drake May. Sam Hartman had an interesting year in 2021, but not so much after that. Bo Nix with 2 top 6 seasons his last 2 years. Pretty phenomenal stuff there. So we care about production. And at the end of this, the stat we're looking at here is fantasy points per game. We're going to look at several other stats for the QBs. I rank these numbers and we come up with the final score at the end. So this is one part of like the production profile that I'm looking at. So it does matter. We want our players at the quarterback position to be elite players with big seasons in college football. So Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix, they all kind of check that bell. Penix didn't really. His 2023 season, he threw some interceptions. He doesn't have any rushing profile, but he did throw for the most yards in this data set here. So I like Penix. He can throw the ball. He just doesn't have the rushing upside. Bo Nix could actually get some rushing touchdowns, so keep an eye on that. The next stat here, fantasy points per pass attempt. I like this one quite a bit. It's more of a touchdown stat, but you want players that are making big-time throws and things like that. So Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, all at the top of the list here. Previous guys at the top of the list would be Tua, Burrow, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Jalen Hurts. So it's kind of a way to just see the big names and what they're doing fantasy points per pass attempt. So there you go. Rushing fantasy points. And this is a huge part of the production profile because at the NFL level, you want those extra 40, 50 rushing yards and a chance at a rushing touchdown. So Jaden Daniels, the top 2 scores here. Bo Nix in 2022, he lit it up for 14 TDs. Jaden Daniels, 3 of the top 4 scores here. So he has the rushing upside that you're looking for. Caleb Williams is sneaky. He ran for 10 touchdowns in 2022, ran for 6 in 2021, and ran for 11 in 2023. Pretty nice numbers there. And then on the far right, you got Jalen Hurts, Malik Cunningham, Malik Willis, Trey Lance, Malik Willis, Sam Howell. Not the best indicator of fantasy success at the NFL level, but you want players that can run the football at QB. You want those extra points. So that's going to ding some players. But overall, the top 4 running backs can all run pretty well. I don't see JJ McCarthy. He's down here at 20. He's really athletic, but he just didn't have to run too much. So he's a guy that could maybe impress us at the next level. Accuracy percentage. It's the adjusted completion percentage, the percent of aimed passes thrown on target, completions plus drop / aimed. Bo Nix is a killer at this. And it's what I said about his low ADOT. He had the lowest ADOT of anybody in this class, and actually going back all the way to the last 5 classes. So a lot of short area throws. His accuracy percentage, though, was 85%. So really strong numbers from Bo Nix. He can run an NFL offense. And a guy like Sean Payton, man, I think he's going to love him. Poor man's Drew Brees, probably more like Derek Carr. I think that's what you're looking at from Bo Nix with a little bit more athleticism. So I like that. Rattler had a good 2021 year. Look at JJ McCarthy up there with 80% accuracy. Jaden Daniels last year, 79.6. So you got some really nice accurate QBs in this class. Drake May didn't really grade out well here, though. 75% accuracy the last 2 years. Looking back at the data set, though, you got guys like Mac Jones, Joe Burrow, Fields, Wilson, some big names at the top, Tua at 7, Stroud. You want accurate passers, and I think this class has them. QBR, just a quarterback rating here. Daniels with the best one. He actually tied Joe Burrow's 2019 season. So Bo Nix, huge year last year. He had one of the top scores looking at the last 5 years. Caleb Williams with 3 top 5 or top 6 scores here. JJ McCarthy's up there. So it's looking, this quarterback class has really separated itself, and it's got a clear top 4. 5 and 6 are Penix and Nix. Don't sleep on Nix. I think Nix can be a sneaky quarterback too for fantasy superflex leagues. Big time throw percentage. This is where Nix didn't really grade out very well. You can see he's very low here. And again, that's because of the low ADOT that he had at Auburn 2 years. He didn't really look at downfield very much. So that's just kind of how it goes. But Penix, number 1 when he was at Indiana. Jaden Daniels last year had a pretty nice score. Guys that did well in this in previous classes, Malik Willis, Trask, Howell. So this stat's not a big indicator of success at the next level, but you do want guys that are throwing downfield and making big-time throws. Turnover-worthy play. Who takes care of the ball? Jaden Daniels did. Bo Nix did. Penix, Daniels, Nix. Guys that didn't take care of the ball. JJ McCarthy, not so much in 2022. 2023, he was a little better. Caleb Williams, he actually didn't take care of the ball very well in 2023, but he did his other 2 seasons. And guys that took care of the ball in the previous classes, you got Wilson, Hooker, Lance, McKee, Burrow was up there. This is not a strong indicator of success at the next level, but it is nice to know, who has made good decisions in the past. This one's an interesting stat: pressure to sack percentage. Basically, anytime you're pressured, how many times were you sacked? Penix was the best at 3.2%. Austin Reed, Bo Nix. Bo Nix doesn't take sacks. That's one of his strongest traits. And so is Michael Penix. These guys dominate. Penix with 3 of the top 6 ratios here. Bo Nix with 2 of the top 6. Caleb Williams took a lot of sacks last year, and so did Jaden Daniels. That's probably one of their biggest issues that I found watching their stuff is they tried to play hero and do some Mahomes things and ended up taking a lot of sacks. So that's their biggest weakness. You can see the stats here on the far right for guys that took care of the football and got rid of the ball and didn't get sacked. Now we're looking at purely PFF grades here. The offensive grade for these guys: Jaden Daniels with the best offensive grade from this class, 94.7 is 2023 year. Bo Nix was pretty dynamite. Spencer Rattler, 2020. Caleb Williams, 2022. Drake May did okay 2022. He regressed a little bit in 2023. And that's kind of, that's a common thing for a lot of these guys here. They have a really good year. They're on the radar. Things don't really, the team's not as good, or there's other circumstances that just couldn't get them to the next step here. But McCarthy, 2023 was pretty solid. On the far right, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Joe Burrow, Fields, Howell, Stroud, Bryce Young. These guys all had really strong seasons with the year that it's marked here. So PFF offensive grade, again, it's just a measurement. It's another production score kind of measurement. So I don't purely look at like dominator rating or production scores. I kind of use a handful of different scores here to show a true production. Another one would be PFF's passing grade. Bo Nix with the highest score last year in last year's class. Jaden Daniels did pretty well. Zach Wilson, man, he had a hell of a year at BYU 2020, but it just didn't work out. But Mac Jones is up there. Joe Burrow's up there. Fields, Pickett, Bryce Young. Just another way to check out their overall, just their passing grade. The run grade is interesting because, again, this is just indicative of how many fantasy points they can add here. Jaden Daniels, the clear-cut #1 player in run grade. Caleb Williams up there. Michael Pratt, a sneaky run grade here. Bo Nix with a sneaky run grade. We want players that can add running value to the quarterback position. And then here you go. So the 2024 QB class scores, basically I added up. So I have all these stats here that we just went over, and then I ranked them with the last 4 classes. So you have 5 classes worth of players. Jaden Daniels had the #1 fantasy points out of all of them, and you can kind of see their weaknesses here. So players with red, a lot of weaknesses. Players with green, those are the strengths. So these guys graded out the best. Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix with another top 4 score here in 2022 and 2023. Drake May, Jordan Travis had a nice 2022. Caleb Williams here with 2021 and 2023 seasons. Drake May down here. JJ McCarthy, again, his volume. You can see here, what's his red mark? Oh, fantasy points per game, but everything else looks pretty solid here. So just a nice way to kind of see, who had the best season that year. That's why I kind of do it that way. So I did write up some things here. You guys can check that out. But those guys all played really well. And then what we do here is I include the last 5 classes. And Jaden Daniels with the #1 score over Joe Burrow, over Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Bo Nix at number 5, Caleb Williams at number 7, Bo Nix again at number 10. You can kind of just see how these players stacked up in that specific season against the last 5 classes. So a really useful tool here, but that's kind of the basis of what I did for the rest of the position. So we'll kind of move a little quickly now. Looking at the running backs, let me catch my breath here. We got so much information going on. All right. So fantasy points per game for the running back position. We'll start on the far right. Najee Harris had the best fantasy season coming out of college football in 2020. 31.68 points per game. On the far left, Rasheen Ali, Dylan Lobby, Ray Davis, Blake Corum, Andrick Estime all had fantastic seasons, but these guys don't really rank in the top 5 of overall seasons from a running back. But Rasheen Ali, good running back. He just played at Marshall, so we're going to ding him for his competition play. Same thing with Dylan Lobby. Dylan Lobby is a true receiving specialist type running back. He can run the ball between the tackles too, but he's going to be a third down weapon at the next level. Ray Davis, kind of a mix of everything. He can do everything well. He bounced around from a few schools, but had a really nice season at Kentucky last year. Blake Corum's 2023, that was his Heisman campaign before he got hurt. really strong year there. Audric Estime, a great year last year. Jaden Sheridan out of Monmouth, Cody Schrader, Rasheen Ali, Blake Corum. And this is just one data point. It doesn't really take into account, where they played. It's just one data point on the spectrum here. So fantasy points per game, you want a player that dominates at the running back spot in college here. So we'll see if these small school guys can hold up. Fantasy points per touch, I like this stat quite a bit. Michael Wiley had an amazing 2022. He actually had, it looks like the sixth best fantasy points per touch that season. He got hurt, I believe. He ended up with a ton of receptions, a ton of touchdowns. He can run the ball. He's going to be a day 3 pick, but he's a receiving specialist type running back. This stat doesn't really show, what a running back can do at the next level, but I like it because it kind of lets you know, oh my God, this guy was very productive when he got the ball at college. Guys on the far right, Javonte Williams had the best score, Dameon Pierce, ETN with 3 of the top 5 scores. Players getting the best out of their touches. That's what you want. So fantasy points per touch is one stat here. Missed tackles forced. You want elusive backs. Javonte Williams, man, he had an elusive season at North Carolina. ETN, Bijan, Pierce. So this is a stat that's starting to show what players can do at the next level. Trey Benson, man, his 2022 season, great year. 51.3 missed tackles forced. That's the highest score going back to the last 5 years. Bucky Irving, Marshawn Lloyd, Tyrone Tracy, Michael Wiley. Again, this just shows a player's ability to make people miss, and you want players like that at the next level. Breakaway yards. This is yards gained on runs 15 yards or more. You divide the rushing yards on these plays, by the attempts, and you have breakaway yards. So Marshawn Lloyd, breakaway player, Trey Benson, Jalen Wright, these guys have speed, size, athleticism that when they get to the next level, it's like, oh God, look out. One player that doesn't have a great breakaway score down here, it's going to be Blake Corum. We have to talk about Blake Corum a little bit. He did rank 12th in 2021, but his 2022, his Heisman campaign season wasn't very good from breakout potential. And then actually his 2023 season, he ranks all the way down here at 51. So he's not a breakaway guy. He's got short legs. He's more of a guy that can get you the 5 to 7 yard carries more than he's likely to get you a 15-yard carry. So be wary of that. Not a stat that's truly indicative of success at the next level. You can see on the far right, Darrington Evans, McFarland, Carter, Vaughn, but we want players that can break away. Like look at Keaton Mitchell last year, so this is a good way to see players that have that breakaway potential. Elusive rating, Trey Benson was off the charts. That kind of goes, with the missed tackles forced. And again, this is just another way of measuring success plus impact of a runner with the ball independently of the blocking. The best ones were Benson, Michael Wiley, Marshawn Lloyd, Bucky Irving, Tyrone Tracy. His name keeps coming up here. Look at the bottom of this list, though. Blake Corum, the least elusive running back in this class with his 2023 season. His other seasons came in a little better. 2022, he ranked 29th. 2021, he ranked 12th. So to me, he's kind of like a Braylon Allen where he's kind of regressing from where he started. But he did come off an injury last year, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Explosive run percentage is the percentage of runs over 10 yards. Jalen Wright, probably the most explosive back in this class. Didn't get a lot of opportunities at Tennessee, but man, he made the most of them. There's Imani Bailey, Isaiah Davis. We haven't talked about him yet. Kendall Milton. Tyrone Tracy keeps coming up. Let's just take a minute to talk about Tyrone Tracy. He is a converted wide receiver. He went to Purdue, became a running back there, and he looks like he's a really good prospect. He's on that Antonio Gibson kind of spectrum where he could be a team's leading back for a little bit. He's probably going to be a committee guy, come in on third downs, play some receiver, get some slot snaps. He's a productive player. But Bucky Irving, Marshawn Lloyd, explosive runs out of Marshawn Lloyd are fun to watch. Trey Benson up there again. Audric Estime with some explosive runs. And again, Blake Corum just not ranking very high in explosive runs. So he's a guy that's going to get you that 4 to 6 yards per carry, not a guy that's got the long speed to run by people. Yards after contact per attempt. Michael Wiley, Trey Benson, Braylon Allen, Tyrone Tracy, and Bucky Irving put up the top 5 scores here. It looks like I made a mistake here with the rankings of these numbers here. So I'll have to clean that one up. But the draft set over here, Keyshawn Vaughn, ETN was a monster at this at Clemson. Herbert, Algier, Dwayne McBride, who we might see. Maybe we see something out of him this year. Javonte, Tajay Spears, Jonathan Taylor. You guys can go check all this stuff out. Yards per route run, you want a player that can add points in the receiving game. And just look at Bucky Irving up there. Small sample, but he ticked the minimum 100 rushing attempts that got him through here. But Dylan Lobby, man, again, he played at New Hampshire, but he was the most productive on a large sample set here. 700 yards receiving last year, 68 catches. He's going to be a guy to keep an eye on in full PPR leagues. And Jahmyr Gibbs was the man in this stat here. 3.03 yards per route run at Georgia Tech his 2021 season. And this is just a way to see, who's adding value at the receiving part of the running back position. We got some PFF run grades here. Isaiah Davis with a monster year in 2023. Blake Corum, Estime, Irving, Michael Wiley in 2022. This is a PFF stat here. And on the far right, you can see Bijan, Javonte, Keaton Mitchell, Charbonnet, Pierce. It's interesting. Not always a great measure of success at the next level, but it's a fun stat to look at nonetheless. I like looking at pass block grades. This is a valuable stat to me because it's like, okay, can this player get in there on third downs? Jonathan Brooks can hang. Blake Corum can hang. These are guys that can pass protect. Marshawn Lloyd, Bucky Irving, Jalen Wright, Trey Benson. So solid scores from these guys in the pass block grade. A route grade, just another one to look at for receiving volume here or value. Lobby, Garendo with a nice year last year. Kamani Vidal, Jonathan Brooks. There's Jalen Wright, Bucky Irving. Will Shipley's kind of a sneaky guy here. Not an amazing talent, but I think he can be a 1B somewhere on a team. So just another way to measure receiving success. And then we came out with the scores here. Michael Wiley's 2022 was the best of this class here, but Audric Estime was really nice with a large sample. Jonathan Brooks, Bucky Irving, Isaiah Davis, another Bucky Irving season. And he did not have a good combine. You'll see, his athletic profile wasn't very good, and that dinged him quite a bit. But he was a productive player. He could be a 1B somewhere. He's kind of sneaky. And then I really like Jalen Wright, Tyrone Tracy, Marshawn Lloyd, Trey Benson. There's a lot of good backs in this class. And then we kind of just, rate these guys compared to the last 5 seasons. So Michael Wiley, he's not really a guy that we're looking at here. He doesn't have a top score, but he did have the 9th best score in the last 5 years. There's Estime, Jonathan Brooks. So again, kind of like what we talked about at the top, there's no elite prospect, but there's a lot of solid ones that do a few things really well. So you guys can check out the running backs there. Here is the tight ends. And we'll kind of go quickly here. Total fantasy points. Brock Bowers had the 2 best seasons here. Dalen Holker out of Colorado State. He's kind of just a volume guy, not an athletic guy, but Brock Bowers is the real deal. He had 3 of the top 4 scorers. There's Sanat, there's Jatavian Sanders. Those are kind of the 3 guys that I'm looking at from this class. Fantasy points per game. What do you know? Brock Bowers, Dalen Holker, Brock Bowers, Ben Sanat. There's Jatavian Sanders. And Sanders is interesting because he was on a really good team in Texas last year. He kind of had a great 2022, regressed a little bit in 2023 just because of the talent of Worthy, the talent of Adonai Mitchell being added to the team. But it's very clear to me the players that were productive, Bowers, Holker, Sanat, maybe even Jared Wiley and Sanders there. And you can see Kyle Pitts was the man in 2020. Trey McBride up there, Cole Turner, another Trey McBride year. Kincaid, productive tight ends in college usually translate over. Targets per route run, not a great stat here. I'm not going to really cover this one too much here, but there was some, Mayer, McBride, Laporta. These guys had a lot of targets per route run. Brock Bowers is up there with these numbers as well. These guys are all kind of, it's a kind of fluky stat, but I thought I'd include it. Yards per route run, some small samples here from Jaheim Bell and Eric All, but they're up at the top of the list. And this is just a Brock Bowers, he's just everywhere on these numbers here. But Kyle Pitts was really, really good in this category back in 2020 when he had his breakout years. Trey McBride, another player here for you in the yards per route. Yards after catch per reception. You want a guy that can make extra yards when he catches the ball. There's Brock Bowers. Look at Jaheim Bell, though. 3 top 5 scores. So The project tight end that I was kind of talking about, don't sleep on him. He's kind of fun. But there's Sanders, there's Bowers again, Sanat, some guys, a lot of the same names kind of popping up here. Avoided tackle rate, you got Jaheim Bell again, avoiding a lot of tackles, making people miss. Athletic, we'll see what he can do, where he lands here. QB rating is kind of cool. Brock Bowers with 3 of the top 4 scores. Dalton Kincaid was the #1 scorer from the last 5 years. You have Harrison Bryant, Kyle Pitts up there. PFF offensive grade, Brock Bowers dominated these 2021 and 2022. His 2023 ranked 5th. Brevin Spanford, Jaheim Bell again, Ben Sanat, Brevin Spanford again. Not a guy that I'm super excited about, but just remember his name just in case he gets drafted earlier. There's Kyle Pitts and Trey McBride, kind of dynasty darlings here. Sam Laporta actually didn't grade out very well in these numbers here, so it's kind of interesting. PFF route grade, you got Brock Bowers, top 3 of the top 4 scores here, Jaheim Bell again, and again, Pitts, McBride, likely, some good translation there. And then the final tight end scores from the 2023 or 2024 class, Brock Bowers had the top 3 scores. There's Jaheim Bell, there's Ben Sanat, Cade Stover, Jaheim Bell again. So Sanders, he ranks 10th, 11th on the scores here. I think he's still, the fringe number 2, number 3 prospect. Bowers, the clear 1. Don't sleep on Jaheim Bell. He might be a sneaky guy based on if he gets drafted earlier than expected, because I like what we saw from him, whether it was Florida State or South Carolina. And then the interesting numbers here, when you compare the scores to the last few classes, you have Bowers with 2 of the top scores of all time. Likely Bryant, Bowers, Pitts. Very clearly, it's Brock Bowers being probably the best tight ends prospect to come out since Kyle Pitts. So there you have it. And then let's finish up with the wide receivers. Again, we're going on almost an hour here. I'm going to try and speed this up here. But at the wide receiver total fantasy points, Odunze, Neighbors, Malik Washington lit it up last year. Troy Franklin, Corley, Brian Thomas, and then there's Marvin Harrison Jr. with 2 of them. The best fantasy college season of all time was Devonta Smith when he went for 23 TDs. There's Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Tank Dell. Those were the top 5 scores for the last 5 years, and then that's where Odunze and Neighbors kind of come in. So still not touching that top 5, but these are all very productive players at the college level here. Fantasy points per game, Neighbors, Malik Washington, Troy Franklin, Jalen Coker from Holy Cross, Marvin Harrison, Odunze, Brian Thomas, Marvin Harrison. So we're kind of seeing the guys separate here that we already know of. On the far right, you have Jalen Darden out of North Texas with a huge year that year. Over Devonta Smith, too. The fantasy points per game were wild out of Darden here. 19 touchdowns in 9 games. But targets per route run, one of my favorite stats here, but doesn't really translate a lot to fantasy success at the next level. Xavier Weaver, the top 2 scores, Malachi Corley, Marvin Harrison, Cowing, Malik Washington, Jacob Cowing, Isaiah Williams. Some interesting numbers here, but not a great measure of success. What I do like, though, is guys like Drake London, Puka Nacua, these guys pop in these numbers here. Yards per route runs, probably the best stat to measure actual success. But Cowing, a slot receiver out of UTEP here, that 2021 season. Malik Neighbors, dominant score here last year. Jalen Coker, Marvin Harrison Jr., Johnny Wilson, don't sleep on him, the big-bodied receiver. He might be a top 100 pick. Troy Franklin, Ladd McConkey graded out really well here. Javon Baker, Marvin Harrison, and then there's Malik Washington, who keeps popping up. First time we'll say Xavier Legette. On the far right, Dwayne Eskridge, whatever, but Devonta Smith, Christian Watson, JSN, CeeDee Lamb. You want players that get high yards per route run. Yards after catch per reception. Not a very good stat here, but I did include it because guys like Jalen Waddle popped in it. Antonio Gibson actually popped in it. Rashee Rice, Devonta Smith, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk. So there is some players that popped in these at college that went on to be successful NFL players. So the top 5 receivers here, Jaquan Jackson, Malachi Corley, Tavion Robinson, Taj Washington, Malachi Corley again. That's what Malachi Corley is best known for, is his yak ability. We'll see if he can do it, though, at the next level. Against Western Kentucky competition, maybe not the best measure of what he can do, but he did dominate there last year. QBR when targeted, Ladd McConkey, number 1. And it looks like I messed up here. I don't have the data set correct here, so I'll clean that up here. But Ladd McConkey, number one QBR rating, Taj Washington, Brian Thomas, Troy Franklin, Roman Wilson. Marvin Harrison didn't have the best years in these numbers. 2022 was his year. That was when CJ Stroud was playing quarterback, and then he didn't actually grade out very well in 2023 in this category. Avoided tackle rate. This is another stat that Marvin Harrison struggles at. He's not very elusive after the catch. He actually doesn't even rank here in the top 30 or so from this year's class. So something to keep an eye on. It's funny because Quentin Johnston dominated here in TCU in 2020, but not so much last year. But guys like Juwan Jennings, Gibson, London, Lamb, they all shown that they can do that at the next level. This kind of, compares with that yak rate too. So Malachi Corley at the top of the list, not surprising to see that. I really like Malik Washington. He pops off in a lot of these numbers for me. Hands grade, just the ability to catch the ball. Joshua Cephas, he had an off-the-field issue. That's why not a lot of people know of him, but I like him. Malik Washington, Jermaine Burton, another off-field issue kind of guy, but there's Malik Washington again, another Cephas. These guys all have really good hands and can catch the ball. Cephas with another in the top 10. There's Adonai Mitchell last year. Players over here, you got George Pickens, Prochet, Dotson, Duvernay, Rice, Nico. Players that can catch the ball. And then offensive grade here, which is kind of a PFF signature stat of just everything that they do, route running and blocking and things like that. It looks like Malik Neighbors, 92.9. That would have put him second best from the last 5 classes behind Devonta Smith's 2020 season. Malik Washington up there again, Jacob Cowing. 2 straight years from Marvin Harrison Jr. You got Odunze. We know the big names in this class. Route grade, Malik Neighbors, Malik Washington. There's more Marvin Harrison, Odunze. Don't sleep on Josh Cephas, man. He might be a day 3 gem. Leggett with his breakout year last year. Otherwise, Devonta Smith, still the best route grade of all time in this last 5-year sample. PFF man coverage grade, Neighbors, Thrash, Odunze, Cowing, Malik Washington. These kind of favor some of the slot type receivers here. That's where Devonta Smith, Christian Watson, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, these guys aren't really slot receivers, but they did dominate against the man grades here. You also have, excuse me. You also have the zone coverages down here. And that's where Ladd McConkey really jumped up. He didn't have a great man coverage grade, but he was 5th best in zone. Marvin Harrison, good both man and zone. Malik Neighbors was number 1 versus man and zone. So we'll see what happens here when we go to the 2024 class scores. And Malik Neighbors, number 1. Malik Washington, number 2. Malachi Corley, we have to ding him a little bit because of the competition at Western Kentucky, but Marvin Harrison 4, Rome Odunze 5. I like Taj Washington a lot. He just didn't get a lot of volume, but his overall metrics were really strong. Cephas, again, competition questions, but he was a very strong player there for several years. You got Troy Franklin, Cowing, Harrison back up there again. So this is just the 2024 class. If you go down here, you can see the remaining 2024 class guys, and then where everyone stacks up the last 5 years. It's a Malik Neighbors party, dude. He had one of the best seasons last year of all time. He actually beat Devonta Smith's Heisman season. So Malik Washington coming in at number 4, and then you got a bit of a drop off to Corley. It's just, again, it's just a way to see how these guys stack up. So that's your 2024 comparison for wide receivers. And then I think we're done. There you go. We just did it. I'm out of breath. We went over the entire rookie guide. And again, there were some errors in there yet. I have to go through that and clean that up, and we'll get that taken care of for the update after the draft. So if you want to check it out, fantasyfellowship.com. Enjoy it. Let me know what you guys think, or if you have any questions or you want to see anything else. We're going to continue to evolve this and grow this over the next few years, but I spent so much time on that. Enjoy it. Let me know if you guys have questions. Thank you for your time. We'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.